right, we're back live. Welcome everybody to Field Service Live. Thank you for being with us. I'm James Leichter, your host. I think we have a great topic to discuss in the next hour. It's something that all business people care about. It's sales. Whether you do the sales yourself or you're looking to hire your first salesperson, you're interested in knowing how to compensate salespeople, we're going to try to cover you tonight. So stay tuned. I'm happy to announce my favorite guest of all time. We haven't had too many, though.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Now, of course,
up for that one.
You'll lose that title when we get a decent guest on here, but for now, it's like best guest of all time. I think the IT guy was great, though, actually. But tonight I want to introduce David Solomon. He is a fantastic salesperson, someone that's been in sales his whole life. I thought he would be a great guest to have on for the show to talk about sales. He sold everything from, and correct me if I'm wrong, but everything from boat accessories to alcohol, beer, and sheet metal pipe fittings and accessories for the HVAC world. I have that about right?
You have it right, yeah. Any commissionable products I've sold.
Ever sold cars?
Yes.
Have you really?
Yes.
Now that I didn't know. How long were you a car salesperson?
Cars was lucrative. It was fun business. I did it kind of out of need at some point. I was a young father, young family starting, and in between jobs, and it seemed fairly easy to apply, right? You walk into a car dealership and you say, hey, I want to sell cars, and they give you the personality test and start doing a bunch of stuff. And, once you get into it, like I said, it can be exciting. I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy the hours, right? I found myself checking in a lot, and the hours were a little crazy, but I enjoyed cars. Who doesn't like cars, right? Oh, yeah. So it's a fun product to sell. And if you're in sales, cars. It always helps to like what you're selling. So,
how much training do they give you?
Everybody gives you training, right? Everybody's got a course they want to send you to. Everybody's got a personality test they want to send you to. Everybody's got a way of doing business, and I think there are valid points to all of them. At every point, you just gotta, right? As a salesman, you gotta follow the direction and the directive of the company, and make the best of it. But they want to train the heck out of you.
Did you work for a car dealership?
I did. Rather large car dealership.
I was curious how much training they required, before you got out there and did your job.
Again, other than there was no product specific training. It was available to you, but again, in that industry, and I guess maybe you see it. There's a lot of turnover in that industry. You've got to do it yourself. I mean, if you want to be good at it, like I said, you've got to kind of like the cars, and the more you know about your product, the better off you are. So, and the easier, again, it makes it to approach customers if you're confident about what you're going to talk about. So, again, I think it's up to the individual. So, training, it's available to those that need it. I think they try to do a good job of, in that industry, trying to hire guys who really don't have to train.
Oh, because I assume they did a lot of training. By the way, feel free to ask your questions. You can type them into the chat window, comments. We welcome all of them. We'd love to get some good questions for David. And stay tuned, because towards the end, I'm going to talk to those of you in the HVAC, plumbing, electrical, field service industries. I'm going to talk to you about when you should consider hiring a full-time salesperson, what sales volume you should be at or number of employees, how you might pay these individuals, and we'll certainly be getting lots of tips from David as we go along. I didn't plan to talk a lot about car dealerships and selling cars, but here's what I think would be valuable to our audience.
Sure.
They buy a lot of vehicles. They buy a lot of trucks. They buy vans, pickup trucks, things like that. I would guess that they could use a few tips on how to deal with salespeople so they get the best price. First, let me ask you this. How much power does the average salesperson have when it comes to pricing the vehicle?
Full disclosure, it's been a lot of years since I've done it, and never did I sell cars during the internet age where you've got Carvana and you've got all sorts of But the old time car dealerships, you never had the final authority. I say you never did. You were always required to go through the process. And you asked about training process earlier. I think the training step was, get them to commit, and then bring in the sales manager to beat them over the head for pricing.
Yeah.
So that was really kind of the training. So they really relied on that one person. But in the end, it was up to the sales manager at the time to determine bottom dollar. I can tell you, the more experienced sales guys would get leniency from the manager. If you knew what you were doing, you knew the profit margins, and you could figure your own commission. You were working for those higher sales. You weren't just giving stuff away. So they were okay with that, and they'd actually prefer, because that way it gave them time to go deal with maybe some less professional salespeople. So,
what's the worst sales job you've ever had?
Oh, the worst sales job I've ever had. I sold Cutco knives back in the day.
Yeah?
You remember the old Cutco knives?
I do. Yeah, I remember those commercials.
Going door to door, cutting pennies.
Yeah.
Cutting pennies with scissors, and that was bad.
Yeah, I knew a guy that sold those out of the trunk of his car, and he was really good at it, though.
Hey, I made some money at it. It was just you want the definition of cold calling. That was the old vacuum cleaner, door to door. You're picking a neighborhood of houses that you think, but man, these folks eat nice, right? So you're gonna go present your knives and knock door to door, and
yeah,
a lot of people laughing at you. Some people feeling sorry for you, and every once in a while you get a sale, and it wouldn't. And again, but once you got the sale, the good thing, here's one thing about sales: you find somebody that likes your product and buys it from you, they become your best resource, right? So at that time you take advantage of it. So hey, I've been knocking on 20 doors. I got one sale, but now this person might give me another one. So
what do you think for managers and business owners out there that are looking to hire a salesperson? What are some of the qualities that you feel are important in a salesperson? What qualities are you looking for? Personality traits or something like that?
You'd be specific to your customer and the sales climate. I think is important too. I think you can hire for in-office sales. You can hire for out-of-office sales, and I think in some cases they may be different people. For me, I look for coachability, right? I look for, obviously, you want somebody that's intelligent, can speak well, comes across well, honestly, can't be personally offensive when I see him. And I've got a broad perspective, but you just got to, present yourself well, and, you can come in all different shapes and sizes, but personality is important. Coachability is important. And for me, sales guys, love of money. You got to be greedy, right? You got to be greedy. So
that's true. You think you should look for people that are greedy?
I think so.
Well, that's interesting. I think a lot of us would say, "Oh, I don't want to work with somebody that's greedy. I don't want to have employees that are greedy." But I think you and others, I've heard others say this too. Let's face it, they have to be greedy to be driven, right?
Yeah. Satisfied salesperson tends not to do a lot of sales, right? So you want guys that just aren't satisfied, and I like guys that love to make money. You love to make money. Those guys tend to do whatever it takes.
So if I'm taking notes,
right.
If this is a seminar, I would have just written that down. Satisfied salespeople don't sell. Is that what you said?
That's what I said.
Yeah, I think that's worth mentioning, repeating again. Satisfied salespeople don't make sales. I think that's why compensation is so important, and we're going to talk about how to compensate salespeople in the field service industry. So number one, look for greedy people, right?
Yeah, and satisfied, maybe I chose the wrong word there. Comfortable, maybe better, right? Because I've been satisfied in a lot of sales position because it provides me opportunities to be greedy, or just because of the work environment itself, right? So you can be satisfied and still motivated. So it's the comfortable guy I don't want, right? I want the go-getter.
Yeah, that makes sense. How important do you think it is to gamify sales, to like keep track of sales closure rates and have a scoreboard? And this is the best and this is the second best and the third best person. Does that motivate salespeople?
I believe it does, yeah. Keeping it competitive now. I've seen a lot of different people throw it at their sales staff a lot of different ways, right? But again, I'm looking to generate a competition. I'm looking for the guys to generate a competition amongst themselves. I don't want to have to be the one that drives that competition all the time. I like to present the numbers, let them look at them, we can discuss them, we can go over a lot of things.
Okay.
But you think and again, that helps me assess the people that are in those positions, because if we are having those conversations and you're seeing those numbers and you're comfortable with where you are, I want a guy who wants to beat the next guy.
I got you. Well, I think it's important when you're hiring, and most of us are hiring, and contractors tell me all the time the most difficult thing is to get staff. Service techs, installers are the hardest, but it's hard to get good people. When you're out in the world having lunch, meeting people, you should always be looking for your next coworker. What are you looking for when you meet somebody out in public? Meet them at a restaurant, maybe they're a waiter or a waitress. What are you looking for in a potential salesperson?
The ability to deal with people. Actually, I have kind of a funny story if you got a second.
Yeah, let's do it. I got lots of seconds here.
One of the best hires I feel like I ever made was a waitress. And this particular waitress became familiar with her because a couple coworker of mine, actually an old employer of mine, and happened to be a good friend of mine, but we would meet for lunch regularly, right? And this waitress always seemed to be there. Mm-hmm. This particular gentleman was ridiculously hard to get along with. Not really. He was just a real. He liked to razz everybody real well. Push the limits. Fun guy, great character. But this gal handled him better than anybody I'd ever seen. I've been with him in a lot of different situations, a lot of different, and he really shocks people because he's just not always politically correct, and he's very loud, very boisterous, kind of outgoing, borderline offensive at times, I would say. Never in a hurtful or mean way, but and this particular gal never failed just to handle him perfectly. Uh-huh. Put him in his place when he needed to, but she realized at the same time he was the kind of guy that could be put in his place, right? Some guys they won't allow that, but again, she was just such a good judge of, and at the same time she'd have different tables with different guests, and she handled everybody well. Anyway, I hired this young lady and pulled her out of that waitress business, and to this day she's grabbed multiple licenses and made a real nice career for herself in a new industry, just based on again just being able to see talent in people, and it was all just based on how she handled it. And sales it's all about relations, and she was able in a matter of minutes able to establish a working rapport with just about everybody she met. So that's just, for me, that's key.
I think one thing I like about prospecting for business is that when you're out prospecting, you get to pick your sales opportunities. And I think when you're out prospecting for coworkers, you get to pick who you're interviewing. I mean, you got to see her in the real world, right? And she didn't know she was being interviewed. Essentially, she was, right? She didn't know that, so she was herself, and you got to observe that. When you're out doing that, you get to pick who you are going to interview. And I think that she could have been a great service technician, by the way, if she wanted to be, if she was mechanically inclined, because she knew how to handle people.
Yeah, I'd agree. And on the flip side, too, I would say, for me, I feel like I'm always prospecting. It's not, luck is what you make it, right? Cold calls versus prospecting. Well, prospecting is something you're constantly doing. So it's not, it's not just, okay, it's time to work, so now I'm going to prospect, or now I'm going to cold call. You're just constantly prospecting. Every time you meet somebody in those situations, and those, I think that's just common of sales people, I guess, maybe marketing people. Same, they're just constantly in that mode. Your brain doesn't shut off. You can't help but evaluate and prospect.
Now, does that come naturally for you, or do you have to remind yourself that you're in sales and you need to be taking names?
I do need to. The older I get, the more I need to write names down. But no, you're just always prospecting, always thinking of it, always looking for a way, create an opportunity. You know, what's he do? What do I do? How do those two things intersect? And a lot of times, maybe he won't. But man, I know somebody that would really like him or could use him. Vice versa.
Oh, I see.
Right? You keep having those conversations. You keep prospecting. You keep networking. And
So you're also thinking not just about what you need, but you know a guy that knows a lady that could use a person like this.
my brain just works that way. Like I said, I'm just constantly. And it's not judgmental. It's just almost like I said, qualifying, prospecting. I just meet people. What do you do? How do you do? And you're picking up on the nuances and their character, the behavior, and yeah, always. Again, I'm greedy, so you pick up on the right thing, and you might find that financial opportunity that you can grab a hold of for a second. But if you're not prospecting, if you're not listening, you're going to miss out on a lot of those opportunities. They'll go right by you just because you didn't have your antenna up.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of that. No doubt about it. Are you like a matchmaker?
No.
No? Okay. No. Yeah. I think, some people that are good at prospecting are also like that annoying matchmaker that always knows someone that somebody should be dating.
Yeah, that's not my business at all. I don't want to be part of that.
Yeah, my Jewish mother was always matchmaking for people. She always knew two people that needed to be going out with each other. It was very annoying.
Yes.
And she usually had it wrong, by the way.
I'll let them figure that stuff out.
Yeah. So let's talk about the interview. What are some good interview questions to ask a potential salesperson?
Well, you ask them, obviously, in sales, how you handle rejection. I am a relationship approach kind of guy, so I'm looking for the guys that aren't afraid to get rejected, right? That can go right past that. So I want to find out, tell me about your experiences. How do you handle it? How'd you rebound for that? Did you rebound or did you not rebound from that?
I was going to ask you about, I want to come back to the interview questions, but I was going to ask you about cold calling. Specifically, I meet a lot of people in sales that don't want to cold call, and I'm guessing it's the fear of rejection. What do you think?
Yeah, fear of rejection, being uncomfortable, cold calling you haven't prospected. It's the unknown, so you've got to be comfortable with cold calling. You can't be afraid to lose what you don't have, right?
Okay. Hold on. That second thing I would write down. So if I'm in the seminar taking notes, I would write that down. Say that again.
That you can't be afraid to lose what you don't have.
Can't be afraid to lose what you don't have. Yeah, that's a good one, because after all, you don't have it. You're cold calling. You don't have anything. What are you afraid of? Losing what you don't have? I like that.
Right. So to cold call, you've got to be comfortable with your product. To accept cold calling, you've got to accept rejection, and rejection's just an opportunity to move on to the next cold call. Mm-hmm. You don't need to spend all day qualifying somebody that's not interested in your product. So, say thank you very much for your time. Move on to it. A lot of times, when you do get comfortable, you'll see guys, instead of just taking the rejection, they can say again, thank you for your time, but do you know anybody that might benefit from our products? You can expand on that. Some guys are in just such a hurry to get off the phone. I think a lot of times people on the other end of the phone can sense that. Too many people these days are afraid to answer the phones as it is. So you've got to be pretty concise, to the point, and not afraid to lose what you don't have.
I know a salesperson, a lady who, she's not the first to say this, but she told me, look, if I have to talk to 20 people to get one yes or maybe, she said, every time I'm rejected, it's a success, because I know I've got 18 left, 17 left, 16 left, 15 left. I thought, I like that. It's a good way to look at it.
You have to throw numbers at it. I mean, you need to be constantly, I like to call it in flow. Right? You have to be in flow. Calls, 20 calls, I'm in flow. I like to stay in flow and to get in flow, I need touches. And my touches are my interactions with people. But I don't limit that. Like I said, if you're constantly prospecting, you don't have to limit yourself to those 20 calls. I'm going to meet 20 people throughout the day that I've got an opportunity to interact with, talk with. So I'm constantly, I include those in my contacts. If you were to ask me, hey, how many touches do you get a week? I'm 150, 200, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just constantly engaging. How are you doing? How's the family? I'm searching for pleasure and pain. I'm just staying in the flow, just trying to network, meet more people, and so. And of those 200 that I've touched that week, I might get 4 or 5 sales, but those 4 or 5 add up. You just keep doing it. Just constantly stay in flow, stay in the game, constantly prospecting.
Well, I should tell our listeners that we know each other. I know you, and I know some of your background, and in my day job, I work with you. I've seen your ability to walk into a building and introduce yourself and meet people, and no matter what the response is, whether that's favorable or not, never phases you. You just move on to the next building. How do you do that? I think a lot of us, me included, would be very discouraged and just want to go back to the office.
Honestly, again, for me, it goes back to basic prospecting. I'm a big believer in respecting people's time. Especially the people I'm calling on. So I want to make sure if I'm walking into a building, and I do a lot of that. I'm known to drive by something that'll catch my eye, and if it clicks, I don't hesitate to walk in and introduce myself. But at the same time, I know when I'm walking in there, I've got value to offer these people, and they may not see it right away. I know it myself. I'm confident in it. That's why I'm not afraid to go in there. And, I don't have the business. I can't lose it. But who knows what's in there for me? And I'm greedy, so I don't. Who knows if there could be a big treasure in there for me? I don't know what's in there, but I'm gonna go find out.
That's cool. Think of it like that. There could be a big treasure in there for me.
You never know.
See, I think for those of you that are in the HVAC business, I think we have a huge advantage. Everybody needs heating and air conditioning. They want to be comfortable. For many people, it's an absolute necessity. At that moment, what I mean, it's a necessity for the modernized world. But at any given moment, when you're talking to someone, it's an absolute necessity. They're going to buy from somebody. And I think that we in the HVAC industry, that's my background, we tend to forget we have it made when it comes to sales, because so many other salespeople are trying to sell things that people just don't need. They don't have to make a decision.
Right. And I think a lot of times too, customers, no matter what industry, what you're buying, nobody wants salesy. Nobody wants salesy. Everybody's looking to buy something, but nobody wants to be pushed. Mm-hmm. Right? You show them you got their best interest in mind. You build, and that's not always easy. Right? We talked about cars earlier. It's hard to do in a car situation. It's a quick sale in and out. The HVAC guys, these service repair techs, you're going in. A lot of times, you're going in the same house, the same property, the same, seeing the same equipment. You notice what's faulty, what's going to go bad, where the potential problems are in the future. Establish a relationship with the customer, without selling or anything. Hey, how you doing? How things going? Hey, I know I'm here to fix this part of it. Everything else going okay in the house? Have you noticed any other problems? Hearing anything? Is there anything else you'd like me to take a look at? Okay. No, you've got your work order. You know what you're in there to do. But at the same time, when you come back up, why wouldn't you say, hey, everything okay? You good with anything? Yep, that smell? Well, yeah, that could be, we kicked up some lint in the ducts, mm-hmm. or, so that's typical. But hey, don't hesitate to call us back. We're here. But again, it's about relationships. It's about trust. Nobody wants salesy. They want people to come in. Again, they need product. We know they need it. You need it. But they've got options all over the place, especially with the internet now. There's options. So be their resource. Be their go-to, right? And sales will follow.
I want to go back to the interview just to make sure we cover any great interview questions that you would recommend. So picture picture an owner, possibly a general manager listening to this show. What are 2 or 3 interview questions that they really should ask? I know the first one, just to recap, was you're trying to gauge their coachability, likability. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what are a couple more?
What motivates you?
And what's the right answer? What if they said, "Well, I'm greedy"?
You're in. You're hired.
Okay.
Not necessarily you're hired. You're right. You get qualified for that. But
Yeah.
Hey, I want it. I want honest. I want money. Tell me you're motivated, right? And we'll put together a program that to keep you motivated, right? That rewards your efforts, rewards you being hungry. So, what motivates you? That's what I don't. To have a steady job, to be somewhere to go every day, 8 to 5, to have a comfortable chair. I'm not good with that, right? There's a lot of jobs that can do that. This is sales. That's a good question for me. I've been through, there were so many bad questions. The good ones.
But I think the greedy one, coming back to that, I would caution people to take that as a bad word. Greedy doesn't mean dishonest, and they might use a synonym for greedy, but you're wanting to hear a synonym for greedy or the greedy word. And the reason why, don't let me put words in your mouth, but you're looking for somebody that is aggressive, competitive.
That's sales.
And wants to get moving.
That's sales. Hey, you can be support. There's a lot of different avenues and industries to go into, but sales is rewarded by sales. It's how you're compensated. So, and it is a different market, and a lot of times it's a riskier market, right? A lot of jobs pay. It's based on how you perform, and if you're not performing, you're going to be eating less, or it's going to be a little harder to pay your bills. So, and I don't want to have to feel sorry for guys that I hire because you're not aggressive enough to go out and get the business. So I want greedy guys. I want self-motivated guys that want to go out, earn money. Can't be shy, can't be afraid. At the same time, can't be obnoxious. Mm-hmm. Right? You've just got to personable, charismatic to an extent. You don't need Robert Redford, or I guess I'm dating myself when I say Robert Redford. I don't know who these guys are. Tom Cruise, I guess. Is he younger?
Yeah, he is.
Right.
He's a lot younger.
But it's personality and connection. For me, with a salesperson, I think it's one of the easier interviews. I've hired for a lot of different departments, but there's an engaging quality a lot of times about the more successful. I shouldn't say it because there are some very successful that maybe aren't necessarily always as engaging, but some of the more successful salespeople I've ever met have just been some of the most, at the same time, have been the most engaging people I've ever met. They made you. You feel it when you meet them, right? They're welcoming, they're warming, and right away you feel like, this guy's interested in me. Mm-hmm. So that's in. Maybe that's not fair, but for me, it's an easy one to pick up on.
Okay, that's worth repeating again. That some of the best salespeople you knew were very engaging. They made you feel like you were important, or they were interested in you, and I think that's absolutely one thing you're looking for when you're interviewing salespeople, or you're out there in the world trying to find salespeople. They're the kind of people that just, you feel like you've known them for a long time, or you can tell them anything. I think most people, if you're familiar with like personality tests, like personality profiles, DISC for one, the eyes of the influencers, I think a lot of good salespeople have a lot of eye.
Right.
They're the influencers. They're the people person. Do you agree?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's the same guy that can, he can laugh it off when he gets rejected. He's not offended by it. He doesn't take it personal. And even if you're not necessarily taking an interest in a person, you can bring them along or get them engaged in the conversation. But yeah, they're just they're engaging people that that are always prospecting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So interview questions. What's maybe the weirdest interview question you've ever had, or maybe it's the weirdest interview you've ever had?
Zoom interviews. Just the past, I think COVID there for a while. Everybody, you just didn't get in to interview with anybody anymore. So everything was over Zoom. I had a. It wasn't particularly a question, but I had I want to refer to a news network, but had a situation where an employer jumped on and he had it wasn't a cat face like the other guy, but he had something else dancing around on his house, right? He had some kind of setting on his phone, so it was kind of, a little awkward there. The Zooms or the bad interview questions. That's hard for me to say.
You'll think of it in an hour.
Right.
You'll say, "Oh gosh,
I will.
I just thought of a funny one I should have told James about." It happens to me all the time. So interviewing, I think, to just kind of sum that up, I think it's important to find out what motivates people. Why are they into sales? And you're looking for someone, a people person, someone that's an excellent communicator. And we touched on presentation or looks. They don't have to be great looking. They just can't be objectionable. They have to have that kind of look and personality that nobody would particularly object to, right?
Oh yeah, personality takes over. There was a time back in the day, tattoos were forbidden, right? I mean, you wanted to make sure everything was covered up, and there was just a big taboo about it. Anymore, it's almost kind of norm. And to me, you got to know your industry, know your customer. Yeah. But again, engaging is engaging, and I've met a lot of people that looked a lot of different ways, and I don't care what you look like. You can always be interesting, right? Yeah. When it all comes down to it, it's personality. So I'll take, you can shock me with your look, and maybe there's a reason you like to shock me with your look, but you keep me engaged and we're good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've met many people like that. I think when I talk to salespeople and ask them, what are the biggest challenges for you? I hear two things. I hear, I could always use more sales leads. And I think that's because they just wait for leads to come to them. And they also talk about overcoming price objections. Well, we're always too expensive. People can't afford what we have. So let's talk about the not enough sales leads. It gets back to, I think, prospecting. How important is it to be a prospector? And generally speaking, about how much time would you say a salesperson should be looking for their own opportunities?
I'd encourage you to always look for your own opportunities. I know a lot of employers compensate salespeople differently based on, whether it's an in-house lead or if it's self-generated lead. But at any point, you're always sales never ends, and you're constantly networking. So you should always be prospecting. If you're lucky enough to work for an employer that's providing you leads, that's fabulous, right? That's what every sales guy wants. They want a great qualified lead every time. That's just not the case. Mm-hmm. So it's inevitable. A lot of people do buy lists, buy leads, and wear yourself out to make that money. I mean, and if you're not, I hear it from sales guys all the time. They don't like the cold calls. They don't. My response has always been, if you don't want a cold call, generate the sales yourself, and I won't have to worry about it. Quite honestly,
yeah.
Bosses tend not to look where things are happening. So if you're productive, I don't care if you're cold calling the list, if you're prospecting the list, or you're using our generated list. Results matter. So if you're telling me you're sick and tired of cold calling and the list isn't enough, well, prospect more. Or, in the end, it's up to you. So that's where, it's going to come down to whether you're a good salesperson or not. Like I said, mm-hmm. If you're getting a list, consider yourself fortunate. A lot of times I know employers are paying for those lists, paying for leads. And a lot of times in those situations too, you got to understand that you're not the exclusive holder of that list. So you get it. You better wear it out and wear it out quick. Mm-hmm. So, which a lot of people tend not to do. They'll get it and they'll think, okay, I've got 100 leads here. I'll oh, I've got a month to do this. And I'm telling you, if you don't have it done within the week or a couple of days, those people have been hit already 100 times by every other person that's done it. So, if you're frustrated with the cold calling list, prospect more, generate your own leads.
Do you remember that movie, Glenn Ross?
A little bit.
Okay, can't remember that actor's name, but if any of you have seen the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, it's one of those must-see movies if you're in sales. But the sales manager comes from corporate, from out of town, and he's got this envelope, and they are the fresh leads. Right. And the sales guy stayed late that rainy night to get the leads, and they're all excited, but he just beats them verbally to death that they don't deserve the leads. They're worthless people. You remember that scene?
Yes.
That was so funny. I just love that movie. Again, if you're into sales, it's a must-see movie. So prospecting, I've always felt like that you need to cold call or prospect when you don't have any other opportunities, which can be, a third of the time. But I agree with you. If you're busy making sales, nobody's going to fault you for not cold calling, but everybody has to be ready to cold call. I think real salespeople cold call because I think there's a difference between salespeople and order takers. And maybe we business people have a need for an order taker, someone that's good at taking the order. They answer the phone and take the order. But we also need people that are capable of going out and getting the order and making that happen.
Well, I think too, because I don't want to get them necessarily confused. Prospecting, you're still going to cold call, right? Yeah. I mean, the difference is you've researched this client, knowing that they are right for your product, right? Not based on what somebody else has told you or provided you, but you set your criteria, you've prospected, and this person is right for you. Mm-hmm. So it's cold call. You asked earlier at the very beginning, why do sales guys hate cold calling, or why are they so uncomfortable with it? And I think a lot of it's maybe because they don't know. And I think sometimes prospecting would always take it away from me, right? Again, because I know I'm going in and I got what you need. Yeah. Or I got what you want, or I've got a product that can help you. You may not want it. You may not need it right now, or know that you need it right now. But it's viable. Whereas in cold calling, you're calling on a list, and you may not have that same information, so you may be a little less comfortable. You tend to whip through them a lot quicker, and there's no reason you can't do a little research on the call list. But again, I'll tell you. If you're getting a list, feel fortunate. Thank your employer for providing it, because it wasn't free.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It wasn't free. That's the one thing they tend to forget. So, it's a way. A lot of times, ownership's trying to create opportunities for the sales staff because maybe they feel like they're not generating enough. So, be careful when you complain about that cold call list that you have to use.
I think people who tell me they don't like to cold call, I feel like they think it's because of their fear of rejection. But here's what I think it is. I think that more than the fear of rejection, which I think is legit, I think it's that they truly don't believe they have anything that's so awesome to sell. Now, think of it this way. Let's say that I worked for a pharmaceutical company and we came up with a cure for leukemia. And I met someone with leukemia. Never met them before. Don't know who they are. But I'm supposed to walk up to them and ask them if they would want to buy my drug that will cure their leukemia. Would I be afraid of rejection? No, not at all. I wouldn't be afraid of rejection. I'd feel like I'm saving their life. I'm making their life better. So why would I care about rejection? I want them to be cured. Well, I think if you have a product that you don't really believe in, it's not that great, like those knife sets you sold, right? How can you be excited? How can you put up with rejection? What do you think about that?
I think, sorry for that. I lost my train of thought there. I was going to a big part of that with you.
It's hard to worry about rejection when you have something awesome to sell.
Yes. Well, in sales, as with any job, right? You've got to, you have to enjoy what you do. You've got to believe in what you're selling. And there are a lot of sales jobs out there that you don't believe in what you're selling, right? So if that's the case, you need to move to support. You need to move somewhere else, or find a different product. I mean, that's really the truth. Now, there are some jobs out there. I mean, it's kind of funny you said it. You mentioned a pharmacy. I get pharmacy calls on my phone all the time offering me drugs I've never wanted to buy in my life. I don't listen to them. I reject them, but I can't imagine what those people on the other end of the phone are thinking. They're not motivated.
Sorry, I don't mean to correct you, but those aren't pharmacists calling you. They're drug dealers.
Right.
And it's not pharmaceuticals they're selling.
Yeah, they're selling me all kinds of stuff. Apparently I'm getting old. But yeah, and so it's, and I flip it around and I think about the people sitting on the other end of that phone, and it's, there's nothing there. But, to be successful, be passionate about what you do. Be passionate about your product.
Colin, I see you trying to get our attention.
Yeah, so I used to work in sales for a long time, and I always told myself that there's a sale always happening. They're either selling you on why they can't buy, or you're selling them on why they do buy. Somebody's going to win.
Yeah.
That's how I thought it. It was a battle each time. They're either going to sell me on why they can't buy, or I'm going to sell them on why they should buy.
Yeah, I agree. So
there's a sale happening every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. Colin was saying that, it's always a battle. They're trying to sell you on why they can't buy what you have, and they're trying to sell you on why you can buy what they have, and it's like a battle. But I think for me anyway, I've never been a great salesperson, I don't believe. But if I've had any luck selling, it's when I was selling something I was super passionate about, something that I knew would benefit the person, and then it was easy to sell. But if I had to sell microphones or tables or most anything else, I would not be very good at it, and the rejection would kill me. But if I was selling that drug that cures people or makes them more healthy, I would take all the rejection in the world, because I feel like I'd be doing God's work.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be passionate about it. Can you be passionate about microphones? Sure. There's a lot of people in the industry, right? Musicians, there's all sorts of different reasons to be passionate about different things. What's boring to one person is fascinating to another. So, find your niche. Find if you want to get in sales, find your niche. Find what fascinates you, and go work for that person. You'll be really good. Mm-hmm. But think about that before you go. Don't throw them all over the place. Just think about the things that excite you, and then go find those people to work for. That's if you want to get into sales, right? And you want to be greedy. Yeah.
One interview question that I would ask a potential salesperson, anybody for this matter, this is a good question, but you tweak it slightly for the position. So if you're hiring for sales, you would ask, what's the last sales book you read? And then you'd ask, what's your favorite sales book? And so what are a couple of your favorite sales books?
My all-time favorite, and I say favorite, I think it's just because it's so generic, is The Little Red Book of Sales. Mm-hmm. It was small, easy. I was able to take it. I traveled with that book for years. And it was something that I could read over and over. I could literally read the book in the course of a flight, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least get to read the stuff I wanted to read, just as a reminder. So I loved it. In sales, I've crossed so many industries. You read a lot of different books specific to different industries. There's the book.
Yeah. Put that right there.
Right. One of the good ones out now that I think crosses over into all industries is the Who Moved My Cheese.
Oh yes,
right?
Great book.
Just telling people to, stay focused. Don't lose track. So.
Who Moved My Cheese? Great book.
Right.
So if you're into personality profiling, and if you've been to any of my seminars, you might have gotten a dose of personality profiling, especially the DISC. There's the S's and the C's, the steady and the conscientious. There's a group of people out there, especially the C personality type, that are very afraid of change. Their biggest fear is, oh my gosh, what will this new system do? What problems will it create? People are going to think I made a bad decision. What if I picked the wrong system? What if I paid too much? They have all this fear.
It's worked this way forever.
And Who Moved My Cheese is a book that salesperson should read to help overcome that, because it's all about dealing with change. And about 25% of Americans are S's and C's, and they don't like change.
Yeah. And you got a lot of people out there too. If it, still go by the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Which a lot of times just keeps them looking the other way and not looking forward or towards any trends. Right?
This is that book, Little Red Book of Selling, and I think it's in its like, I have the latest edition, but I think it's like in its 5th edition. This is, I believe, the most popular book on sales there is. I think that they've sold 13 million copies. It is the best-selling book on the subject of sales. And like David was saying, it's an easy read. It's well-written. It's well-designed. I would buy this book in a minute. And I'm not saying that because we have some kind of affiliate link or anything. We don't have such a thing.
Right.
But I agree. That's a fantastic book. What about another book? So we want to give listeners some homework.
Okay. Well, now you're making me think.
I think you told me one time one of your favorite books was Ninja something or other.
Oh, Ninja Selling's
Ninja Selling.
Ninja Selling is it's a very good book. It's more of a philosophy that they teach, but the book's the philosophy of Ninja Selling. Yeah, it's very fits my profile very well. Right, it was something that. And that's it with a lot of these sales books. Like I said, over the years, I've read many, a lot of industry specific. So, I try to read them to reaffirm or reaffirm my own beliefs. Or in that situation, it reinforced a lot of my thinking, gave a lot of support and additional information and ways of moving forward. The Ninja Selling did. So I really bought into that. Matter of fact, I have it here in the offices, so I still look back on it quite a bit just for to stay in flow.
So we got 2 books for sure to recommend to our listeners, and that is the Little Red Book of Sales and also Who Moved My Cheese, and also possibly Ninja Selling, which you say is more philosophical. I've got another one. I'm going to reach down. Oh, man, almost fell off the chair. Okay. Never Split the Difference. Heard of it?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic book. Never Split the Difference. This book is really not so much about selling as it is negotiating, but it's a sales/negotiating book. It has more things in this book that you can start using immediately than maybe any book you're going to read. It's just amazing how many times you'll read something and go, where's my highlighter? And you'll highlight something and you're so excited you can't wait to tell your coworker about it. I really love this book. One of my favorite parts of the book is when he goes to buy a car. He tells the story about buying a car and how he negotiates the best price. And I want to just share that real quick because I think it's a great technique and I think a lot of people struggle with this. So here's the deal. I've always felt that rich people, self-made rich people, especially good negotiators, act poor. And poor people can be bad negotiators because they act rich. So poor people will say things like, I got bank, I got money. You don't think I have money? I can afford that. Sure, I can afford that. No, that price doesn't scare me. But rich people are often they have no problem acting poor. So they'll say something like, oh my gosh, $15,000 for just a heating and air conditioning system? Who can afford that? I don't have that kind of money. They could have $1 million in their pocket, but they'll tell you, I don't have that kind of money. Who's got that kind of money? What do I look like? I'm made of money? They act poor, and they're shameless about it. And you'll notice they're the same people that bend over and pick up pennies. But the poor person wouldn't be bothered picking up pennies. And he talks a lot about that in this book. And the story about him buying the car, he makes up his mind he wants a Toyota 4Runner, and he's going to pay $35,000. He did research, found out that $35,000 wasn't a steal. It wasn't a steal. He wouldn't be ripping them off, but it was a very good deal if he could get it for $35,000. So he goes in there, and he tells them, I want that car out on the lot. And I really hate to say this. I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, actually. But the truth is, I can only pay $35,000 for the car. And the salesperson says, oh, my gosh, well, that's way under what we're asking. Could you do blah, blah, blah? No, I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it, but I can only pay $35,000. Well, let me go talk to my manager. He goes and talks to the manager, comes back with another offer. And he said, no, I hate to say it, but that's all I can pay. I can only pay $35,000. Now, he doesn't say, I want to pay. He kept saying, I can only pay without specifying why. Sure. Well, anyway, long story made short, because you can read it for yourself, they sold it to him for $35,000 because he never budged. And he kept saying the exact same thing. He never rephrased it. He kept saying, boy, you know what? That's a really great offer, David. I really appreciate it. Anybody would probably take that very nice offer you made me, but I can only pay $35,000. So he always compliments them and thanks them for their great offer, but he keeps coming back to the fact that he can only pay $35,000, and he buys the car for $35,000. Really, it's one of the best negotiating tips that I ever got out of the book. And my whole family has read this book. My kids have read this book, and they love it. My son, who's not into sales at all, is the guy that recommended this book to me, and he uses this book all the time, the things in this book all the time. One of my favorite takeaways from the book is to tell someone how appreciative you are of their offer, and you really appreciate that offer. But I can only, and then you restate what you're willing to do, and you never change the words. It's very effective.
Yeah, I'd only add to, for that strategy, I'd try to wait till the end of the month too. Don't go in there at the beginning of the month. You might be waiting for a while.
That's right.
Closer to the end of the month, you could do that.
That's right.
Get away with it. But yeah, I've always gone into a dealership knowing what I wanted to pay, prepared to do so. And being in sales, formerly selling cars even, I was always aware of commissions and compensation for sales guys. So I never wanted to pay sticker. I would go in there knowing, have a fairly good idea of what would be fair and still compensate the guy. And that's where I'd stick. And yeah, you walk out and go to the next one. There's more than one Toyota dealer in town.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were talking before we went live. You and I were talking about movies we had seen,
right? And
you mentioned Tommy Boy, and at first I couldn't remember what it was until you started describing it. For that was a funny movie. Tommy Boy. I can't remember that actor's name. He died. Chris Farley. That's it. And he's selling auto parts. Hilarious
for his dad's company.
Yeah. Great movie. And Mad Men, the series, I think is a must-see for salespeople. And another one, Tin Men. So those of you in the HVAC industry, especially if you do sheet metal work, you'll love Tin Men. It's not quite about sheet metal. It's about people that sell aluminum siding. But Tin Men is a fantastic sales movie I'd recommend for everybody. So those are some books, and those are some movies that I think salespeople should read. And remember, your interview question should be, hey, what books have you read? What movies have you seen? I also wanted to share this. Before we came down here, I yanked this off my wall. And I'm often asked about this, and I'll put it on camera real quick before I read it. People that come into my office ask about this all the time, want to know where I got it, what it's from. And this talks about price objections. So I want to give all of you a little tip here. And you could include this verbiage in your proposals, your cover letters, but if nothing else, just live it. Now, allow me to read this, if I may. It is unwise to pay too much, but it's worse to pay too little. When you pay too much, you lose a little money. That's all. When you pay too little, you sometimes lose everything, because the thing you bought was incapable of doing the thing that it was bought to do. And I love this part. The common law of business balance prohibits paying little and getting a lot. It cannot be done. If you deal with the lowest bidder, it is well to add something for the risk you run. And if you do that, you will have enough to pay for something better. That was written by John Ruskin, a British philosopher, in about 1842, I think it was. So in 1842, apparently they still had the same problem, trying to overcome price objections. But the point you want to try to make to people is that you can't get a $30 hammer for 30 cents. You can't get a $15,000 comfort system for $8,500. It cannot be done. But people are greedy and they think that they can get a better deal, and they find out they didn't.
Hey, deals are great, but I was always told you get what you pay for, right?
Yes.
It was always an old adage that, and I don't know how much, if it's still around, but still holds true. Yeah, you don't want to overpay, but at the same time, right, you need to know what you need and buy quality if you want it to last, or be prepared to buy another one.
You know, we have a few more minutes. I want to throw out some things for our listeners to think about when you're hiring sales. A common question I get during my seminars is, when should we hire a full-time salesperson? Oftentimes, small companies, the owner's doing the sales. It really all depends on what they're selling. Let's say that they're selling replacements, mostly residential, maybe it's commercial. Think about the fact that a residential salesperson in HVAC can sell about $1 million worth of replacements. If it's new construction, it could be more like $1.5 million to $2 million. But if they are going to be out selling replacement HVAC jobs, then you want to hire a salesperson when you have reached about $750,000 in sales, because they're going to be able to do about $1 million in sales, and sales will be generated by other people as well. You don't want to wait till you're at the maximum of $1 million in sales, because you want them to be a little bit hungry and go out and generate that extra revenue. So you're looking at about $750,000 in sales. At that point, you want to get yourself a full-time salesperson. Now, what do you pay him or her? You pay them a salary that they could barely live on. And I mean barely. They could afford a little bit of heat and a little bit of soup, and that's about it. And you give them more commissions than you would salary. So you favor commissions more than salary. The commission, a common commission, is about 10% of gross profit dollars, or pardon me, I misspoke. About 20% of gross profit dollars is pretty common if it's a very low salary. If you want to pay based on retail price, it would be about 10% of the retail price that they sell for. Now, if you provide them with cookbook pricing, like you give them all the pricing and they have to live by it, it's okay to pay a percentage of the retail price because they don't have control of it. Otherwise, you want to pay them 20%, 15 to 20% of gross profit. Whatever you decide on, it depends on the salary and benefits. But the point I want to make is you're paying them a percentage of gross profit dollars because you want to drive gross margins up. You don't want them cutting the price because they'll be cutting their commission. Also, when they reach a certain low point on the gross profit margin, then they would not get a commission. So you would say, for example, 35% gross margin is unacceptable. No commissions are paid at 35%. Anything above 35%, we pay the commission. Another thing to think about is the prospecting, the cold calling. If you take all of your sales leads, count them up, take all the money you spend on marketing, divide all the money you spent by all the number of leads, figure out what it costs to produce a sales opportunity. That should be their bonus when they created the sales opportunity. So anything from half of it to 100% of it would be their bonus. Give me an example. Let's say that it cost you $500 to keep the math easy to create a sales opportunity. Then you might give them $200, $300, $400 of that when they went out and created the sales opportunity. You don't want to pay them the bonus on what it cost you to create a sale. They're producing the opportunity, so you want to give them up to 100% of what you normally spend to create that opportunity. And that way, they're incentivized to go out and create their own opportunities, because if they're greedy, like we're trying to find a greedy, quote-unquote, person, they're going to want that extra money. Another thing, don't pay commissions unless you get paid. You have a rule that says we have to get paid if you're going to get paid your commission. Now you're turning them into better paperwork people. They're more likely to get signatures. They're more likely to go collect money. In fact, it's a great opportunity when a salesperson goes out and collects at the end of the job. They go out to the end of the job and they collect, and you'll find that they do a pretty darn good job of collecting. So those are a few tips, I think, when it comes to going out and finding salespeople. If you have any questions or need any other information, please post it, and we'll answer those later. I think that all of us have to, if you're a small company growing, one of your most important hires is the full-time salespeople, so you owners can be freed up to do other things. You want to first get your techs to get you out of the field. You eventually need to get that salesperson to get you out of sales. But remember, you're always selling and promoting your business. So I want to thank David Solomon for being with us tonight. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, and I apologize to everybody.
For what?
Part of my job is to make sure that this seat is filled with better talent than me. So.
Oh, that's right. He's our talent guy, and he couldn't find any talent, so we had him. No, you've been great. You've been a great guest, because really sales is so important for all companies. I've always felt like nothing happens until there's a sale. So I wish all of you the best of luck. I hope to see you next week. I'm James Leichter for Field Service Live. Thank you.